Hello and welcome back to your final presentation in your World Regional Geography course. This time we're going to introduce the realm of the Pacific and Antarctica. Well, let's get going. So introducing the realm. The Pacific realm are home to many islands and island groups. The largest island is New Guinea, which is home to most of the realm's population. Many of the Pacific Islands have become independent countries, while others remain under the umbrella of their colonial controllers. The many islands can be divided into three main groups based on their physical geography, local inhabitants, and their location. We have Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Changes in precipitation patterns could seriously alter the biodiversity of tropical islands in the Pacific, and change in temperatures or precipitation could affect agriculture activity and tourism on many of these islands. Climate change in Antarctica could cause further decline in population of penguins or other organisms. So as we'll learn, since most of these locations that we'll be speaking of or islands are very susceptible during monsoonal seasons, during hurricane season, things like that, that when it comes to extreme weather and climate change, they are one of the most dramatically hurt in that realm. So we'll talk more about that, but I did like this image that I'm providing here that shows the three areas: Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia, however you like to observe that. And let's look here specifically. What I did is I actually didn't pull up dot density maps of population. I wanted to really look at some relief maps. So here I've provided a relief map on the left of the Hawaiian Islands, and then on the right hand side I pulled up one of Antarctica. What's interesting about just visual observations of these two maps, starting with the ones from Hawaii, is that we see that a majority of the landscape of Hawaii is actually under the water because of that volcanic, those hotspot rings, because of those volcanoes, those volcanic actions. Then when looking at Antarctica, we see, and as we'll learn a little bit more in a moment, is that a majority of its ice, landmass-wise, is actually pretty small, but it's because 90% of the mass itself is ice, and we'll talk a little bit more of that, which I think is pretty interesting. One thing that they definitely share in common are volcanics, which I thought was pretty cool. So let's look at Melanesia. What's interesting about the name Melanesia or Melanesia is that the name itself made reference to the pigmentation or color of the skin that were prominent in the people in that time, but that does not represent the ethnicity groups that are observed today. So the main island groups include Fiji, New Caledonia, Vanuatu, and the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea. All are independent countries except for New Caledonia, which is under French government rule. Papua New Guinea is the largest country in the Pacific realm, with high mountains of the interior reaching 14,793 feet. Snow has been known to fall in the higher elevations, which is incredibly exotic in a sense, because we know that those locations are located right along the equator. New Caledonia is still a colony of France and was once a French prison colony. Under a current agreement, sovereignty is slowly being turned over to the local island government, but it's a very long process of checks and balances done through France. Now looking at Micronesia, which really just means really small islands in a sense. North of the Solomon Islands, we find the micro portion, which the name refers to the fact that the islands are small themselves, often only 1 square mile or so in physical area. The region has more than 2,000 islands. Most of the islands are composed of coral and do not even extend above sea level to any large or great extent. The largest island in Micronesia is Guam. It is only 210 square miles in area and reaches an elevation of only 1,300 feet at its highest point. The coral reefs, they surround Guam's volcanic center. Guam is not an independent country, but a U.S. possession. The island was a strategic location during World War II, and the United States has military installations located on that island. If that interests you, a great word to look up for this geographically and geologically is called an atoll, A-T-O-L-L, and that might explain a little bit more about the development of some of these islands and locations out in Micronesia. Now Polynesia, or Polynesia. The greatest region of the Pacific is Polynesia, a land of many island groups with large distances between them. Poly meaning many, right? Numerous groups of islands have come together under separate political arrangements. The region includes the Hawaiian Islands to the north, the Pitcairn Islands, the Easter Islands to the east. Tahiti, located in the Society Islands, is the central hub of French Polynesia and is a major tourist destination with a mild climate and tropical rainforest. Most of the population is along the coastal areas, as the interior of many of these places are rather uninhabited. The United States, the United Kingdom, and France used various islands in this location for nuclear testing. Moving forward, radiation fallout continues to be a very, very strong environmental concern in these regions. Now moving on to Antarctica. Land claims to the continent were established by 46 countries included in the Antarctic Treaty, which was originally signed by only 12 countries in 1959. The treaty designed to protect the environment and encourage scientific research, prohibit military activity, mineral mining, and the disposal of waste products, although there's a little bit of unclarity as to what's happening in certain regions right now, because it is a large landscape, but there are concerns of some of the agreed upon things occurring by other countries. Now, research stations account for the entire human population on this landmass. About 1,000 people live in Antarctica year-round, and about 5,000 or so more live there during the summer. They do get a lot of tourism. Tours, it's usually done by cruise liners, and they usually last only 2 weeks, but they do come by to look at the penguins and stuff like that. Now, what's interesting also about this location is that 98% of Antarctica is covered by an ice sheet that is on average up to a mile deep. Most areas it's as thick as 3 miles. In the winter, the ice sheet's area will double as it extends from the coastline. The Antarctic ice sheet holds 70% of the Earth's fresh water, and if the ice were to completely melt, it is believed that the landmass, the actual rock continental landmass underneath it, is equivalent to the surface area of Colorado. One other thing to add is that there's also an active volcano in Antarctica, and you can actually observe in the caldera the melting pot, or the actual lava itself that bubbles. So again, very, very, I don't know, I guess that blew my mind when I learned about that, just the fact that if Antarctica were to melt completely, it would only be about the size of Colorado. What's also interesting about Antarctica that I'll add before I wrap up here is, when looking at it climatically, is that yes, it is obviously in a polar state because it's above the 60th south parallel, is that it's categorized as a desert because it receives less than 10 inches of precipitation per year. Yes, there are some areas that can get up to 4 feet of snow, but we don't measure it based on feet of snow. We actually look at it based on volume of water or precipitation. And as you know, that when water freezes, it expands, so 4 feet of snow does not equate to 4 feet of water or rain. And so it is classified as a desert, because deserts are classified on precipitation, not temperature. All right, so now it's time to test it. This is our last one that we're going to have together, so again, I really appreciate your time. Let's jump to these questions. Question 1. Again, these are taken from the video, the text, and other resources available to you on your Canvas module. The islands of the South Pacific can be divided into how many regional groups? Question 2. Some of the islands in the South Pacific have radiation issues because... And question 3. Which region is the largest geographically in the world? And question 4, Antarctica is considered dominantly what type of climate? Be sure to like the video, comment if you have a question or input. Again, I really appreciate your time while we've gone through this semester. Thank you again for all of your hard work, and let's get these answers. The islands of the South Pacific are divided into 3 different regions. Some of the islands in the South Pacific have radiation issues because of nuclear tests by the US, France, and Britain. Which region is the largest geographically in the world? And that's Polynesia. So actually, by surface area and geographic space, Polynesia is the largest realm in the world. And lastly, Antarctica is considered dominantly what type of climate? It is a desert. Again, thank you very much. Hope this was very helpful, and we'll talk soon.